tractor. Still sipping that moonshine and I'm plastered.
All right, everyone. Welcome back. Another episode of the Moonlighters Club. Wanted to introduce Tom. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Joel.
Thanks for coming. It's been a whirlwind. I've actually had the past week 7 interviews, 8 interviews.
Really?
A lot. I met you at a networking event. A lot came from that. Like Allison from Coffee Cup Collective.
Yeah. The General Assembly companies there were great.
Yeah.
Really liked them.
It was awesome. So I'm glad you took the time to stop by. And I'm Joel Edwards, your host, and we just jump right into it. So we were talking for a while, and what I liked about, and we'll definitely get into what Stride for Stride is. It's just one of the things Tom does, was the mission behind it. And I feel like when I was starting this podcast, interviewing people who were doing entrepreneurial pursuits, the majority are for profit, which is fine, like tech company or butcher shop, doesn't even matter. But I liked seeing anything that has some kind of a mission. And we met Allison, who did Coffee Cup Collective, and she was super adamant about helping the environment some way. She was like, I got to do something that really puts my footprint in on that. So when I saw what you were doing with that, I'm like, cool, we definitely need to have more of this. So I'm really happy that you're on the show.
Thanks so much.
So I guess we'll just start out with how you even got into industry anyway. What'd you go to school for originally?
I went to school for economics and political science.
Nice. That's pretty thorough.
Yeah, it was the worst dual major I could ever imagine. And then now I'm sort of and then I got into marketing and social media. So I have nothing to do with what I went to school for.
What's that frame of thinking for something like that? Is it law? Is it when someone does those two?
I think the frame of thinking was not knowing what the hell I wanted to do. That was sort of the boundary of do I go into finance, economics? Do I go into sort of law and politics? And I wound up going into finance right after college.
Okay.
So I don't know where the poli-sci part came into. There was actually a good class that really looped us into his politics and the movies. So we watched Casablanca and On the Waterfront. So all these great movies. So I think that hooked me into this political major, which certainly wasn't me. But it's good for getting my blood boiling in the current political environment, right? For sure.
Did you, was it fun going through it towards the end? Did you start getting acclimated and you're like, I can, this is cool?
I was actually never, it's in college, I actually never grasped, because I think I was in totally the wrong major. I went to Boston College, and actually where the marketing advertising side, which I've always liked more, was in a totally different school, and my grades weren't good enough to get into that school, another school within the university.
Okay.
So I think I was sort of okay, this is what I have to just finish up on. So I never really got it.
Okay.
All right. It never clicked with me, and it was never easy.
I feel like every major has a stereotype about the people who are in the actual major, all the kids who are super into accounting, all my friends, I'm like, yeah, you're an accountant. I could just tell. Is poli-sci like that? Are you
I agree about the accounting side. They stand out. I have a few friends that are accountants, and they come in very handy around March or so.
Everything,
but they are certainly accountants. Poli-sci, the politic majors they're pretty gung-ho into politics. It always fascinated me. And it still fascinates me. A lot of people I know that work in the State House and in City Hall that are just gung-ho local politics or state politics. So is that sort of really passionate? I think some of them are, super passionate about serving their community and making a difference. So the politician side are interesting until you get up to some of the elected officials. And
it's a whole nother.
It really is
megalomania.
And then what do you say?
You get to this whole megalomania.
Yeah,
thing
that's exactly what I was going to say. It's purely ego at some point. So.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you say that. The older I get, the more I get into local politics. And you're absolutely right. I feel like everyone I meet who's new or younger is okay, no, we really do need to change stuff. And that's why I like seeing local politics, because you'll hear stories about someone building a park, someone doing something with teachers, really interesting, innovative stuff. Yeah. But then the higher you get, there's just so much red tape. Yeah. So many things happen behind the scenes. It's conjecture at some point. I'm just I don't even know what's happening anymore. So I can understand that.
Yeah, I don't. So it was a wrong major.
So when you get out, you went right back to school to do finance?
No, I actually worked. I went to I actually did 6 months at Fidelity Investments.
Okay.
Which as soon as Fidelity is a great company, and as a client or as a customer, like totally respect them. But working there was way too rigid for me. I was like, this is not for me. It's too just buttoned up. And so embarrassingly, I lasted 6 months there. And then I moved to a company called Thompson Financial, First Call back then, which was much more like a startup atmosphere. Okay. We had kegs on Friday, basically shorts and t-shirt. Cool. So it was a much more cooler atmosphere for finance. And it was especially coming into that era, that was 90. Well, I don't know if I should admit my age here, but that was mid to late 90s. So the internet was just starting to boom.
Starting to blow up.
So we had all these internet startups taking off in Boston. In Boston, we had like Lycos was here. Remember them?
Yeah,
like one of the original search engines. CMGI, which was sort of this umbrella that owned all these different startups, including Lycos. We had Ash Cheese was in Boston, which was another start.
I didn't know Boston was even into
search engine.
I didn't know Boston was really involved in that first .com boom.
There was a bunch of tech companies, and a lot of them were based in Waltham, the 128 corridor. So, which is totally different now. Every company wants to be downtown Boston, but back then Waltham was like where it's at, and all these big companies. But we had a good presence here. Nice. So the finance company I was with, it was sort of casual in that environment. Okay. And a lot of companies were losing people to the .com era like crazy, especially at that time. People were making fortune. First off, any idea was throwing money. I had we had Wired alumni back then, and investors were just like trying to throw us money. And it was the worst. It wasn't necessarily the worst idea, but it was the three of us just didn't get along. So, choosing your partners wisely is very important for any biz or any startup. And the fact that investors were giving us money. It was a crazy time that no one knew what was going on. There was all this investor money going out there. And it was crazy. It was fun. I mean, those are days like broadcast.com, like when Mark Cuban sold off to Yahoo and made his billions.
That's insane.
And, and obviously Bezos got a start there, and the Yahoo guys.
Yeah. So when you're seeing all of that, at that point, was anything when you're seeing all this happen? You were saying you were working with these other partners of yours while you're doing that. Did some kind of entrepreneurial sense click? Where because I felt like because I'm mid-30s now, I went back to school when Facebook was like blowing up, so that I definitely got caught up in that whole thing. Was it the same, not just for you, but for really just the environment of the city? Could you see people going, no, we can do this. Like we can come up with a website.
Oh, there was crazy ideas. Yeah. And basically it was a website. I mean, you could come up, there was a great E-Toy, I think it was, it was an E-Trade commercial. And you could probably Google it. It's investors in a room, and the kids are like, yeah, we have a website. Like, you have a website? Here's $1 million. And it really was that just stupidity of going on at the time. But me working in finance, that's when I started moonlighting. I'm like, finance is not for me. I never really got it in college, but this stuff going on the internet is really cool. Yeah. And that's what I want to be a part of. So I actually tried to get a job at like Lycos and Ask Jeeves and all these companies that were big back then, which are kind of laughing now. But, and they're all like, dude, no, you're just a finance guy. We don't want you. So I couldn't get into the field. Wow. And I don't blame them, because I was this finance guy from Boston College. It's about as just boring as you get. Unless I was an accountant from Boston College. Sorry. So I'm like, all right, fine. I'm going to create my own thing. So we created this community alumni network called Wired Alumni. That was 99, I think it was. And to build these communities for all the colleges in Boston. And actually grew really, really fast. It was crazy. But that's what got me, my first taste and a little addiction to going off on my own. Okay. And within 2 years after that, I was off on my own and never worked for anyone else since.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So
you always work for someone, right? But never in an office, and never for a big corporation again. You work for your clients, obviously, but
what's going on in your mind when you're like, I'm out? Did you know you were never going back?
No. That was I think the first day of 2003, January 3rd. The reason I did that is so I have like another month or so of insurance, health insurance, to get me through. And then I did unemployment too, which got me. So I asked the company to please lay me off. I was begging. So I actually got unemployment for 9 months, which was a great way to get my runway and started. I remember the first time leaving the safety of a big company just, this blanket that's on you and protects you, but it controls everything. And in the first week or so out there, being like, oh my God, I don't know, can I survive like this? Can I physically survive and not die on my own out and trying to hustle my own thing? And it was it's been a phenomenal experience, but it was this really weird experience of letting go of that safety blanket that I had that was 7 years, and just going out on my own. And then seeing and then the second realization was like, wow, there's a lot of people that are on the streets during the day. Yeah. I thought it was a ghost town, but I'm like, my naivety then realized, oh, people have all different types of jobs. Not everyone works market hours. There's service industry and there's all different types of industry. So it was really pretty cool. But that was very early on. Now Boston has this great startup community, but there's a lot of WeWork and bar co-working spaces, which didn't exist back then. So with me and a lot of other companies were totally working on their own. There was no collaboration, no interaction between these other companies. Yeah, it was kind of, and so it's sort of like just sitting in my desk in my apartment and just doing data entry and, all the behind the scenes work on these websites. And not until later on did I think, until social media, I think, and Facebook a little bit, but I think Twitter even more, did a lot of these different companies start to interact more and have these co-working spaces, a mass challenge, and then people realize, okay, we're not competitors. We can actually collaborate. We have experienced failures just like the other guy, and maybe I can help you prevent getting to that failure again. Okay, cool. I have a lot of failures. I can certainly tell you what not to do.
So I'm glad you said that. When do you know it's over? You know what I mean? I feel like that's a tough thing for most entrepreneurs, they're including myself, being super scared that something's not going to work. Yeah. But it's at what point do you say, okay, I'm going to cut this off? Are you really good about that? I know I'll definitely try to squeeze everything out of something before it's too late. And we all have people in denial. Do you know when to spot, okay, this is cool now, but may hit some road bumps down the road, or this is going to be bad. Let's just kind of mitigate this.
No, you get emotionally attached to it. So it's tough to really let it go. I mean, I have a company, Flutter, now, which crowdsources money for charity, in addition to Strive for Stride. And, we started in 2015, so that's 4 years old. We're shutting it down pretty soon, but we probably should shut it down probably 8 months or 12 months ago. It's sort of like your baby. You put so much time into it, and it did raise, we raised about $150,000 for charity from the app. So we did good from it. So it's tough to let something like that go. So I get emotionally tied to things, that's for sure.
Yeah. What was your process of coming up with Flutter, right?
Flutter, yeah.
What Fluttery?
What?
Did I say it right? Flutter?
Flutter, like the heart palpitation. Yeah.
So what was that process like coming up with that specific entity? Did you see something out in the marketplace and you're like, did something catch your eye one day? Or was it something you were kind of?
Well, a few things. So one, I go to a good amount of charity events, big fundraisers like House of Blues, or they have, I think Google Dolls was playing at this particular concert.
Nice, Iris.
So Iris, and they wrote a good pop song. They weren't the best on stage, to be honest, but they wrote a good pop tune. Iris, and there's another song I love, but I can't picture it. So obviously it was a big money event. So you had a lot of these guys and girls that were just holding up their paddle for $5,000, $10,000 donations. And, there's no way in hell I can come close to that. So I leave feeling like a jerk. Like I didn't support the charity. I could give you 10, 20, $30, but I can't do $5,000. So I left that event being like, wow, I'm not contributing to whatsoever. I'm not this big money finance guy anymore. So that started the realization, of me creating Flutter. But then Omaze, I discovered Omaze. I don't know if you know Omaze. No. Omaze, they're huge. They give away. They started off with giving away experiences with like George Clooney, go out to dinner with him, blow stuff up at Arnold Schwarzenegger, which actually was a real one. And you donate $10, $20, $30 to a charity for the chance to experience this. Now they're giving away McLarens and Teslas and houses. They're really, really big, and they raise a ton of money for charity. Good. Yeah. So I was looking at Omaze. I'm like, I love this concept. I love that it's an easy donation to get into. But it's like all these big charities, and I don't care about going to dinner with Clooney.
Right.
And it's for American Heart Association, which is a great association, but it's a huge charity. So I'm like, let's just scale that really back, hyper local. Let's do something like ride in a hood blimp over Fenway Park, which only people in Boston would love to do. And let's raise money for Rosie's Place, which is a women's homeless shelter here on Newbury Street. And just hyper local and make it $10. We capped everything at 10, unlike Omaze, to give everyone an equal chance of winning. So we didn't want the guy that had $10,000 to be able to buy 1,000 chances and sort of have the unfair advantage over someone that can only afford $10. So that's how so those two came together. Me at the fundraiser, realizing that I can't contribute, and then the idea of Omaze. So the idea was, if we get 1,000 people to donate $10, that's better than one guy donating $10,000.
Yeah.
Is my math correct there?
Yeah.
I always screw up that math. So that's how Omaze started, and that's how Flutter started. And we had some really great stuff. We gave away a year of free rent in 2016 in Cambridge.
Nice.
Which is obviously like $40,000-$50,000 prize. That benefited Y2Y Harvard Square, which is a youth homeless shelter in Harvard Square, the only student-run homeless shelter in the country. And so it had a great run. Yeah. But then actually, getting free rents, like getting these prizes is actually quite challenging. Yeah. And then, we were sort of doing the same prizes, and the interest started waning off. So we are closing out. We're actually going to pull some of the pieces from it and build, I think, software for charities to use. So I'm taking a lot of what I really like from Flutter and using it for Stride for Stride for my fundraising. The raffle part of it was really easy and great. And it's, people donate $10 and it automatically picks one winner. So
nice. I'm glad that you say that, because I remember going to an event at the Boston Center for the Arts. It was for a camp. I can't remember the name of the camp. It was for local kids.
Was it on one of the islands?
Could be.
I can't remember. There's a great camp on one of the islands.
Yeah.
Great camp.
And there are people there, and they're going through people telling these heartfelt stories about why the camp's important to them, people who had been there, gone through Boston public schools. And it was weird because it was super disheartening, because people were kind of listening, but not really, because you had all these catered meals from these great chefs and free drinks. So they're like talking, no one's really paying attention. And then when it came time to donate, they raised their money like this, right? You have all these corporate people, finance folks to pay. And I'm like, okay, that's great that they got the money that they needed. But I also like what you did there, because it's about the engagement too. Yeah. Like if I can just throw away whatever amount of money to something just because I have it and that's it, I don't ever think about it. Yeah, that's helpful. But I feel like if I put money into something and I know, oh man, there's a homeless shelter in Harvard, and I could like pin that and I could do something with that. Or there's all the other local initiatives that I could really get behind. And not just me, but like 20 people instead of just Joel writing a check. I feel like that creates so much more of a ribble effect.
Oh, for sure. We got 9,000 people to donate to charity from Flutter. So we raised 150,000. So the dollar amount was okay. People obviously donated more than once and different things. But I feel like the 9,000 people that we got involved is awesome. Yeah. Like, that is huge. And that just gives you, when you donate, when you give or you help someone out, it's a great feeling. And a lot of those people, I think, first time donating. And if it helped them to support another charity or do more beyond that, that's awesome. Then we did our job, even if the company failed. So I totally agree. And charities, a lot of charities now are trying to get with the younger generation, millennials. You go to a lot of these fundraising events, they tend to be fairly older. Mm-hmm. And they want the numbers. So they agree that if you get 100 millennials that donate just $10, they're all for that too. Because over time, hopefully your income increases and you can contribute and support them more.
Nice. How many people were working together on Flutter?
That was Steve and I.
Just two people. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Steve's a buddy of mine that we've built a lot of projects over the last 11 years. We built a lot of applications for Twitter when Twitter was early on. Him and I totally worked together. We've never received $1 in financing, so it's all been total bootstrapped. Yeah. He has 4 kids under the age of 6, and he works a full-time job at Hill Holiday, so he's a great moonlighter.
Yeah, it's crushing it.
Yeah, but my dream developer is someone that has no social life, no friends, and doesn't want to do anything other than develop. Because I'm not a developer, so his time is certainly tight. So.
Yeah, I hear that. So, did you both come up with Stride for Stride at the same time too? Matter of fact, you should probably explain Stride for Stride. No, jumping right into it.
Yeah, so Stride for Stride Strive for Stride is a charity, so it's actually the first nonprofit organization I created. We basically just buy race bibs for low-income runners.
Okay.
I'm an avid runner and I run a lot of races. And from that, one, I know races are quite expensive. I have trouble paying for all the races I want to run. And races are pretty homogenous. I mean, they're pretty white for the most part.
Yeah.
So the goal of it is to get more diversity in races and get people that can't afford to get to the starting line. Boston Marathon is $350 to run.
Yeah.
A lot of guys on our team most of our guys are immigrants from Central America and, making minimum wage. There is no way they can spend a month's salary or a couple weeks salary on a race. So we sponsor them. We buy their bibs, and we probably have one guy running Boston next year, but we got 3 guys running Bay State Marathon in the fall. One's running Marine Corps. And if you know about running, we have 2 guys that are sub 3-hour marathoners, which is ridiculously fast.
It's really good.
So these are great runners that just couldn't afford to compete. So we just buy their bibs, and it's been the best thing I've ever done.
That's crazy that you say that, because that's something I would never think about. I would never look at marathons or 5Ks or anything and be like, there's people who want to be in this who aren't in this. I always look at it like, no, these are the people who like to run long distance or things like that. I didn't know diversity was a thing within, you know what I mean? Like, well,
it's part of it. But when I started, it was like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is the only people that actually want to run. And maybe there's no one else. And it took 2 or 3 months. We got this guy, Ned, was our first runner. He's awesome, really good runner, who was formerly homeless. And, he's got his life back, and he's about a 1:30 half marathoner, which is another great timer.
Yeah.
But, for a while, it was like, maybe there's just not this out there. And then we got connected, this guy Strato that I run with, we got connected with his fellow immigrant community. And then from him, all these great runners, he started connecting us to that want to run these races, but just can't afford to do it. And have been running all along on their own, but just never joined a race.
That's crazy. It's so interesting how relative those barriers to entry are. Mm-hmm. Like you think you don't have privileges in certain areas. Like I hear 300 and I'm like, yeah, that's a chunk. That's definitely a chunk, but an attainable chunk for me, right? Yeah. And it's just crazy that man, like just lowering that or not having that would drastically change the playing field. And I feel the same way about business. Like you have all these people with ideas for all kinds of neat, innovative concepts, and they either can't get the resources that they have or don't really know how to find those resources. But once they become available, everything shifts. And it's better for everyone. That's the thing about it. Like it's better if more people run from various places. That means you get more eyes and more participation. And that's kind of crazy. Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite local charities, which I don't think's around anymore, was Experience Fund. And they basically just paid people to do free internships. So there's a lot of internships that are actually, I think there was a news article last night. A lot of the U.S. politics and Congress are free internships. And there's tons of people that can't afford to spend 40 hours a week for free. So this Experience Fund paid them a salary to do an internship that they wanted to give everyone an opportunity. It was awesome. Unfortunately, I don't think they were able to raise enough money for their cause, but I think and I think there's other causes out there that do similar stuff. But it's perfect. I mean, that levels a playing field. So it's unfair. Why should the rich kid be able to afford this internship with, Nancy Pelosi, but someone else that's maybe more qualified but financial can't do it? Can't afford to do that internship. So Stride for Stride, it's pretty similar. We're just using sport. So
what's the normal day to day for something like Stride for Stride? Because I'm only familiar with, if not a for-profit entity, it's not a nonprofit, but there are for-profit social entities you can make. The name, is it 403B? I can't remember, but it escapes me. So actually running a charity, what goes into that besides I really have no idea.
501c3 is our profit. 403B is actually what I was at Fidelity. I was a 403B rep.
Okay.
Which is the retirement account for probably charities, but also hospitals and education, university, stuff like that.
So it's something. I literally just pulled that out of today.
that brings back some total nightmares, actually. I hated answering that phone. Charities are actually, so I've started about 5 or 6 corporations, LLCs and stuff. Okay. Those are really easy. I mean, you can start those tomorrow. Charities are much more difficult to start. So they cost about the same, maybe $1,500 or so. I use LegalZoom often, but I'm sure you can pay a lawyer a lot more if you want to. But all the filing fees are about the same or so. They're included in that $1,500. But there's a ton of paperwork to do. Then you got to submit it to the IRS, and then you got to wait about 8 or 9 months for them to respond back. And we're still in that process now. And then they need more information. I just faxed them information a couple of days ago. And faxing, I've been faxing pages. So it's a complicated process, and I think rightfully so, to make sure people aren't swindling others out. It's and to make sure they're legit. But it's so this was my first charity that I've created, and it was an eye opener how much more of a challenge it was to create.
And then when it comes to like maintaining it, I'm assuming there's a ton of checks and balances in that too.
Yeah, you do. You have board of directors, which public companies do too, or LLCs. But and your board of directors meetings every month, and you just go through. We're so small, so here's what we brought in, here's what we spent, and here's our sales and all that stuff, and just sort of to keep everything in line.
What's that experience been like? How long have you been doing Strive for Strive?
Strive started in November 28th, 2018. So not a year.
Oh,
under a year.
How was it received when it first came out? Like, I remember hearing about it at the networking event, and I was like, I never even thought about it.
It was it's you put things out there, and when you put something out, you always you think it's the best idea you've ever had, which you should, because if you don't believe in it, no one else will. But then you get really nervous, like, oh, now's the time. No one shows up for the party and no one likes it. The response from day one was really awesome. It was really great, but it also depends on who. So if you tell like someone that doesn't run, this is what we do, and they're like, oh, that's stupid. But if you tell a runner, someone runs a lot of races, they find it's like the best idea in the world. I've just been humbled by how much people really, really believe in the mission that we do and support. And the nice thing about Stride, all our runners, we all run the same races together. So before and after the races, we're all there for hanging out and photos and chatting and stuff. And it's become this really great community of the runners that we sponsor, but also people that support us. So the people that support us by donating, they get to run with our runners and get to meet them and know them personally and see how they affected. A couple of our guys have told us the money they save on shoes and the money they save on running races goes home to their family in Guatemala and in other Central American countries, which is huge. So you're creating their life better here, but also making the life of their son and family much better in a country like Guatemala. So
how do you find the runners? Like do you have to, it's like some kind of pull thing? And
no, it's actually, Ned was a collaboration with Back on My Feet. Back on My Feet. Do you know Back on My Feet?
I think I've heard of them, yes.
They help people transition out of homelessness via running. So the whole goal is if you can commit to running 3 days a week at 6 a.m., which is something I can't do. I can't get up at 6 a.m. Then you're on your way to committing to a job and showing up on time and having responsibilities. And so Ned was our first runner from Back on My Feet. The second runner, Estrardo, was a guy I used to run with, train over the winter. I run Boston every year, and I train over the winter. And he's a guy I used to run with, and I knew that he was from Guatemala. And I was always like, I never said it to him. I was like, I was always curious, like how he affords all these races and stuff. And then he learned about Strive for Strive, and he's like, would you ever sponsor me? And I'm like, of course, you're the one I wanted. And everyone else has been from him. So he's spread it word of mouth. So he brought in a couple other people. Joshua brought in, we have 2 runners from Miami, are people that he grew up with. He's from Nicaragua, and there are 2 friends of his that he grew up live in Miami. One girl is running a 2:45 marathon. And so it spread from them. So it's been totally great. It's I'm always looking for runners. I'm always looking for sure. But they've certainly helped spread it.
Nice. So how do you split your time between, I know that you're getting ready to pivot Flutter, but between the two, it sounds like there's just a lot of passion behind both of these. How do you know one day I'm going to do this, one day I'm going to do that? Do you kind of just wake up and see how the day takes you? Yeah. Or do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wake up, see how the day takes me. Yeah. I mean, my day job is a thing called Boston Tweet, which has been a social media platform since November 2008. So 11 years on Twitter.
What goes into Boston Tweet?
Which 11 years on Twitter, you sort of want to jump off a bridge at times. Especially these days, there's like a lot of hot stuff flying on.
How do you even manage that? Like, I'm awful Twitter related. Like we are doing everything we can to kind of get it. The whole rhythm of it is hard for
Yeah.
me. Like
I think I had trouble probably when I first started. Now it's normal. I mean, you do something every day for 11 years. Obviously, you kind of get in the groove of it. Boston Tweet started in November 2008. It was a way to create awareness for local business during a recession. Recession just had started. Me as a single guy back then, my biggest fear was there would be no girls at bars. So I wanted to make sure that people were still aware that Eastern Standard and Public House were there. So started tweeting about local businesses and hopefully that people were still going out. Boston has a really diverse economy, so it never really got that hit, or at least the main part here. So it was just keeping aware of things that are going on in the city and sort of reporting that news back via Twitter as a platform. And I chose Twitter as I wanted to build something with my buddy Steve. But I had lost all my money because the economy crashed. In the beginning of 2008, I had 2 startups that within like a week were automatically, that's an example of these things are going great.
Yeah.
Markets crash. Wow, these are useless, like overnight. So, I wasted all my money there. So I'm like, all right, I'll have to use this Twitter thing to be the platform to spread out this information.
Yeah.
And that grew really, really, really fast. By January, 2 months later, we had a couple thousand followers, which at that time was a lot.
Yeah.
And just focusing on Boston, single in the city in Boston. And a lot of it was cheap eats. So I had a lot of college students follow me because at that time, a burrito for $4 was the main source of food. And just talking, places to get cheap eats. So obviously young college kids and people struggling latched onto it.
Nice.
And now those college kids are like in their 30s, which blows me away.
How much planning goes into that? Like, are you, when it comes to social media, or do you need to take a step back, kind of project plan it and go, okay, we're going to boom, 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 hit it all like this the next couple of months? Or are you a couple weeks? Like what?
A couple of days at most.
Yeah.
It's because things come so fast on Twitter. And Twitter, part of what Boston Tweet Try to does is keep up to like the news and stuff happening in the city. Not every news, but something that's going to affect everyone. And mostly a little more on the positive side. I'm not like the evening news that gets every car crash, but on the positive side. And that stuff comes in so fast.
Yeah.
And it happens at the moment or happens when you're walking down the street and something you see. So, like a couple of days ago, walking through the canals in Charlestown, tons of plastic bottles. I'm pretty big environmentalist and really against plastic bottles, but there's probably like 30 or so plastic bottles in this pool of water in the river there and a couple of dead fish. And, that was like, okay, this is something I see and post it out.
Yeah, that's, what was it? I don't know if it was that, but also about the Charles. There were just fish showing up.
Yeah. Well, Universal Hub, who's another great resource, he published some stuff. There was a lot of dead fish in the locks. So the locks connects Charles River with the harbor.
Okay.
And to keep the traffic and the water levels constant. But there was probably hundreds of fish that were dead in the locks there. And that most of that was because of there's an algae problem in the river.
Yep.
And so the oxygen within the water is decreased.
Right? Yeah.
So a lot of these fish have died, which is super sad. And, there's a ton of them out there. But the week before was all the plastic bottles that I saw. Yeah. So a lot of it is just reporting in that news as you see it. Yeah. Now we all know what cell phones are, but back in 2008, I think I had a Motorola flip phone, to be honest. But early on when the iPhone came out, I think in 2009 or so, it was citizen journalists. We all could report on what we saw at that moment. And that was really new back then. And Twitter was the platform, like Boston Marathon bombing, someone experienced it on Twitter and published it to Twitter before anything else. And, everyone on the street is able to be, report what's happening at that moment. And at some point it can be massive. So, that's sort of how Boston Tweet got started. And
especially now, man, Boston is growing, the population's growing so rapidly. We have all these things going on from the MBTA alone could do like literally give you
well, in the early days
of content.
For sure. In the early days, I did a lot with the MBTA of like trying to stay up on all the delays and stuff.
Yeah.
One, it became such a challenge to try and do, but that provides constant entertainment for sure. People love to hate the MBTA. So this year's been bad. It's
been awful.
And the fares went up. There's, it's been really bad. So
but I do like to see people from like the stuff you're doing from Universal Hub, anyone just talking about stuff. It's like, yes, I love to see anyone people taking ownership of it, because it's like, but when I was younger, maybe it's an age thing. When I'm younger, I'm just like, whatever, this is broken. Someone else is going to deal with it. But now I just feel so much more empowered because of technology that I could say, okay, I can at someone about this, or I can see this person's tweeting about this with all these followers. That's awesome. Yeah, other people are talking about this. Now I can talk about this too. It's
you can directly send a note to Bill Gates or Barack Obama. You know, you might not see it or reply, but there's a chance that he can. Yeah. Like I remember when I started with Twitter as a musician, I really liked it. I sent him a tweet and we started a conversation privately. I was like, wow, this Twitter thing is amazing. Yeah. At the time I had more followers than him. So he was sort of, kind of using me, I think, for his Boston show. But I was like, this is really, really cool. There's no barriers now to be able to communicate. That's always been, the greatest thing about it.
Nice.
I mean, I've always said the greatest thing about Twitter is a not constant flow of information. You always know what's going on. Yeah. And the worst thing about Twitter is it's a constant flow of information. Like you always know what's going on, and you need to unplug for a while and take breaks. I usually have at least a couple times a year a cleansing. Yeah. Like for a week or so, twice a year, a cleanse and just get off of. I actually did that last year. I went to California for 2 weeks and basically didn't have my phone on me at all times.
Awesome.
Read a bunch of books. Read a book by the founder of Tom's, Blake Meisky, which is Start Something That Matters.
Yeah.
And really changed. I mean, that's what Stride for Stride came from. Really just opened my eyes and said, yeah, you know what? Stop trying to create apps that, or dating apps or trying to get you laid or whatever it might be. Like start something that's really going to make a difference. And I've read that book like 4 or 5 times now because it's so inspiring. But that's how Stride for Stride came about, and just this sort of this social media detox that I was on. And
nice. Well, you have a lot going on, which could any one of these could go in any variety of directions, and you can come up with something new too. If you could have one goal or a milestone for, let's say, Stride for Stride in the next year or so, what would that be? Are you looking at something in particular, or?
Obviously to create, Stride for Stride is something I want to do for the next 20, 30, 40 years, nice. Or God willing, how long I'm around. It's really been to see how it affects people, and it gets people running and changes their lives. And, we're not curing cancer. We're not solving homelessness or starvation. But we're giving people something to look forward to and a challenge to overcome. We have 9 runners now that we sponsor on a regular basis that are probably each running maybe 8 or 9 races this year.
Cool.
Would love to double that.
Okay.
Love to double the fundraising. I'd love to and be able to support like 20 runners.
Nice. All right.
Yeah. That's sort of our short-term goal, to really just build up that community. The nice part is it has grown somewhat slowly. Another concern was you get like 100 runners that want bibs all of a sudden. And thankfully it wasn't like that. So it's been growing, a couple a month or so. But if we could double those runners, it would be great.
Cool. So hopefully we can do that. If you can share with everyone watching and listening how we can follow you, share what website we should go to support.
Yeah, Stride for Stride. StrideForStride.com is the website. And a lot of our donations come from, we sell singlets. Actually, I don't have it on. We have this equal sign, red logo. And it's all about creating equal opportunity. And it's meant to be just stand out when running races. It's a very bold, loud logo that doesn't have a running guy on it. So it's very unique. And the point is just to get people's heads turning. But StrideForStride.com is that. We're on Instagram. Actually, if you want to meet our runners, they're all of them are featured on our Instagram account, which is at @StrideForStride_. Unfortunately, have that underscore, but at @StrideForStride_. And a lot of our guys and girls are featured on our pages there. So
nice. This has been fun.
Yeah, it's been awesome, Joe.
This is great. This is great.
Thanks for the invite.
I'm always for that's need more mission. You need more missions in your life. Like even like doing this podcast, I like helping others reach things. But now, like, I'm just all about, okay, man, what can I do personally about homelessness? What can I personally do about the environment? Just stuff that's right in front of my face. Yeah. It's like I can't leave this place without leaving some kind of a mark on it. So I think we all underestimate the amount we can do. And just, I agree. You know what I mean?
One of the nice things, like Flutter, if you have another minute, like, my background was like internet startups, and even like 7-8 years ago, I created this thing called Download Boston, which is about promoting internet startups. And then part of it was like, all these startups are started doing the same thing. They're all trying to make themselves really rich, sort of thing, and not doing good. But I started Flutter, which was all about crowdsourcing for local charities, and I got to know hundreds, think we had about 300 charities in our database, but got to discover all these new charities. But something like Experience Fund, which I mentioned earlier, they were just as entrepreneurial as the internet startups. They just had a different mission. Like, they had the same drive and passion behind that. But the end game wasn't to sell it to Amazon for a lot of money.
Yeah.
It was to make a difference in someone's lives. And that really helped me realize, like, okay, it's time to stop creating stupid apps and create something that really makes a difference in someone's lives or your life, even if it's just one person, or if it helps the environment or helps, the homeless or poor or, someone that just doesn't have and start off on the same starting line. Like, I think there's going to be a lot more of them. I feel like the apps and sort of silly apps are starting to wane away in the startups, and I feel social impact is making a much bigger impact. And there's a lot of stuff that needs help with, and I think people are starting to realize that.
Nice. Well, that was awesome. I appreciate that sentiment. It's everyone who's listening, watching, you could be that person too. We can all do a little something.
Oh yeah. You just got to put it out there and start something that matters. Blake McCoskey. I highly recommend it for being motivated on starting something that really makes a difference.
Nice.
It's a great book. It's a very easy read. So
awesome. Well, if you want more of these, moonlightersclub.com. That's our website. We put all our content out. As you all know, our podcast is on every major podcast network. Also, we are always looking for more individuals like Tom so we can hear more stories. So please reach out to us if you know anyone or you yourself want to share your story about following your passion. So until next time, we'll see you all later.
Yeah. Thanks, Joel. Thank you.